Hello and welcome to the autoX show. Now sit tight because we've got a truly action-packed half an hour coming up for you today. We've got everything from an all-new compact SUV which could well be Mahindra's best machine ever, to a bunch of flying, yes flying, bikers and an off-road SUV developed specifically for the Indian Army. But first, here's the all-new Mahindra XUV 300.
Mahindra & Mahindra is a company that has always been known for their SUVs. Right from the earliest Armada to the Bolero to the super successful Scorpio, SUVs have always been synonymous with the Mahindra brand. And with the compact SUV segment in India doing record numbers, it's no surprise that Mahindra is launching their latest product, the XUV 300, in the Indian market. In the automotive world, SUVs are the hottest things you can buy today. In India, SUVs, all sizes, all segments, they're flying off the shelves. So it's no surprise that a brand like Mahindra & Mahindra is choosing to launch their latest SUV, the XUV 300. This is a sub-4 meter SUV that competes with the Maruti Suzuki Vitara Brezza and the Ford EcoSport. It's based on a global platform. It comes with a diesel engine and a petrol engine. And we are in sunny Goa today, driving it to see what it offers to customers. Mahindra's entry into the sub-4 meter SUV segment is no surprise actually. You have to understand that between the Vitara Brezza and the EcoSport, there are thousands of SUVs that are being sold in India. And it's a very lucrative market for a company like Mahindra. The XUV 300 is based on their global X100 platform. It's essentially a SsangYong product. It's sold as the Tivoli. So what that does, and essentially the first thing that really strikes me when I get into the XUV 300 is that the quality levels are quite good actually. The plastics are nice, the touch surfaces, how everything functions, how everything's finished. It's actually remarkably very good. I mean, there's not really anything I can complain about. Secondly, the refinement is fantastic. We are driving, it comes in two engine options. One is the 1.2 petrol, turbocharged petrol, about 110 horsepower, 200 Nm of torque. That we're not driving. What we're driving is the 1.5 turbo diesel, which is 115 bhp and a pretty solid 300 Nm of torque. Now, the interesting thing in the engine is not only is it very refined, but it has a flat torque curve from 1500 to 2500 RPM. What that does is that once you have the engine running above 1500, it actually is really easy to drive. There's more than enough power available and it really hustles a little bit, you know. There's one complaint here that I have. At launch, the car is going to be launched only with manual gearboxes. So both the petrol and the diesel get 6-speed manuals, and that's something I think that Mahindra should rectify immediately, because in our urban centers at least, the appeal of an automatic is going up. Driving manual gearboxes is not easy. Other than that, even for a sub-4 meter car, it's very roomy. You can see I have lots of headspace. Seats are quite comfortable. 5 adults should not be a problem, but it's more of a 4-seater. But yeah, all those 4 full-size adults can fit in very well. The ride is actually very well set up, so is the handling. We are on the narrow, winding roads of Goa, so I have not been able to do very high speeds, but whatever I've seen till now, it's been very satisfying. On-road and off-road, the XUV 300 works really well. And there are a bunch of features too. Another segment first for the XUV is that it gets 7 airbags on the top version, of course, but 7, that's a good number. That's a very smart number. And with the Mahindra Marazzo getting 4-star global NCAP rating, I'm hoping that the XUV 300 will get a similar rating, if not better. So what can I fault it with? Not really, not much, except for the fact that there's not an automatic option. I would like to see that. 2, I think the key element of the XUV 300 will be pricing. It's very important in India to price your product very well. And if Mahindra can get that right, they usually do. this is going to be a really, really good seller, because also I forgot to discuss the looks. It's actually quite a striking looking car. It's the wide rear haunches, the big headlamps, the shiny big grille, the big rear tail lamps. I mean, it's actually quite a handsome product, and the 17-inch wheels also help because they fill up the arch very well. So I think it looks quite balanced, has great amount of equipment including a touchscreen system, like I said, 7 airbags, dual zone climate control, and this I think might be the silent dark horse in the sub 4 meter SUV segment. This could actually change how the whole segment works, of course depending on how Mahindra chooses to price it. To be honest, the Mahindra XUV 300 comes as a total surprise to me. With its combination of excellent quality levels, fit and finish, refinement as well as safety features, this could easily be the top contender in the compact SUV segment. And if I was the Maruti Suzuki Vitara Brezza or the Ford EcoSport, I would be very, very worried.
Now don't go anywhere, because we've got a lot more action coming up after the break. Now Robbie Maddison has been a stunt double for Vin Diesel and Daniel Craig, and him and his buddies were in Mumbai recently and they put on a show in front of the Gateway of India, and I bet you've never seen anything like this before.
Freestyle motocross as a global sport is very niche to begin with. FMX involves riders pulling off crazy antics mid-air on their motocross bikes. Globally, there are many troupes of such FMX riders who host stadium-packed sold-out shows. But in India, we have not been exposed to such dedicated shows since 2012, when the Red Bull X Fighters flew into Delhi and wreaked havoc at India Gate. Top FMX athletes pulled off death-defying tricks once again at the Red Bull FMX Jam Mumbai. The 6-rider group did 3 sets of stunts of 15 to 20 minutes each, of which the 6-man tandem run was perhaps the trickiest and most enjoyable to watch. Robbie Maddison was joined by Frenchman Tom Pages, the current Red Bull X Fighters World Tour champion, who rode a 2-stroke Yamaha 250. Alexei Kolesnikov, a Russian who was the first man in his country to land the famous backflip, was the 3rd Red Bull athlete. Martin Koren, Radek Bilic, and Julian Van Stippen were the remaining 3 riders of this troupe.
FMX is amazing sport to me. I mean, it's something that really caught my eye when I was just a young guy. I got inspired by just the visuals of seeing motorcycle riders high in the air, you know, hanging off their motorcycles, doing handstands, doing just the freedom it showed, you know, especially with the camera angles that I was seeing in the films like Crusty Demons that really made it popular. Just totally blew me away, and so I just wanted to have a taste of what that looked like. I wanted to feel that freedom, and although it feels different than what it looks, it's just an amazing experience. You know, you're able to have that sense of freedom when you're on the motorcycle. There's so much going on, there's so much at risk that you're forced to have your mind clear, and to me that's the best part about riding motorcycles, is when you're on a motorcycle you can't afford to be thinking about anything else, and so it becomes like a meditation. Undoubtedly my most popular stunt is to jump on and off the Arc de Triomphe in Las Vegas, or maybe it's catching the 20-foot wave on my motorcycle in Tahiti, but probably one of my most favorite stunts was doubling James Bond. I mean, I spent 3 months in that film and got treated like a total royalty, and we got to ride on the roof of the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, right in front of the Blue Mosque, you know, amazing landmark, riding on historic buildings that date back and very significant to our culture, and to be able to have that, to be able to have the permission and be able to have lived that opportunity. There's not many people on the face of the earth can say they've ridden on top of the Grand Bazaar. So that's just special to me, to be able to be a part of that film, to work with Daniel Craig, to meet the legend himself. He's such a gentleman and larger than life, and to be a part of that franchise and that film and work with the people I've met there. I mean, it's been amazing, and still have these relationships with these people today. Yeah, I'm going to be riding the KTM 450. It's a very, very powerful machine. It's probably too much to handle for most people, but it's we only ride it in second gear. It's an amazing bike, and I feel comfortable on it. So it's a lot to handle, but it's going to be fun to ride it down here in the gateway of India, to be able to ride on these sacred grounds, and to be able to bring a show to the people of India. I'm excited to do it. Hey, I'm Robbie Maddison, and you're watching autoX.
That was legendary Australian FMX rider Robbie Maddison. Maddison is the man responsible for executing several motorcycle stunts in movies. Some noteworthy ones being stunt work in Vin Diesel's XXX Return of Xander Cage and as James Bond in Skyfall. The Red Bull athletes started off slowly with several heel clickers and other such motorcycle grabbing tricks. But they soon enough were doing some amazing tricks, such as the Kiss of Deaths, Supermans, cliffhangers, whips, and ultimately backflips. In the final set, the guys did the 6-man tandem run, in which 4 riders did backflips. Even though we had to wait for nearly 7 years for such an event to return to India, we hope that Red Bull brings these crazy guys back once again.
Now, the Rainforest Challenge is widely regarded as the most grueling off-road event on the planet. And Force Motors has been a force to reckon with, pun intended, at the RFC in India. This is their latest Gurkha, the Xtreme.
The Maruti Suzuki Gypsy has been my favorite car ever since I can remember. And that's with good reason. For the Gypsy has been serving the Indian Army's front lines for well over 30 years. But now there seems to be a new contender. Well, the Indian Army is trying out this new model, Force Gurkha Xtreme. And to ensure that the Gurkha is up to the task at hand, Force has taken its standard model and taken it up several notches. So this new Xtreme model gets a new engine, a new transmission, a new transfer case, new axles, new suspension, a new ECU. You get the picture. In fact, the only thing that this Xtreme model shares with the Explorer is the body shell. So will this new Force Gurkha Xtreme be able to serve as well as the rugged, dependable and versatile Maruti Suzuki Gypsy? Well, that's only something that the Indian Army's research will be able to tell us. Until then, I'm going to get behind the wheel of this Force Gurkha Xtreme and find out if it's the real deal. In this extreme format, the Gurkha gets a lot of heavy-duty hardware to ensure that it can deal with the harshest and most demanding terrains and conditions on a continuous basis. And it would have to if it were to serve the Indian Army in what includes some of the most challenging terrain and weather conditions in the world. So this purpose-built Gurkha Xtreme gets a couple of unique mechanical components that are unseen on any other production vehicle in India. These include its spring-over axle configuration that sees the new coil spring suspension mounted over the Dana 44 rigid axles. Then there is that factory-fitted snorkel, which again is a USP for the Gurkha Xtreme in India. And it is also the only vehicle in India to come with front and rear locking differentials, this side of the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. But then again, the G-Wagon is an import after all, and a very expensive one at that. Speaking of the G-Wagon, the overall silhouette of the Gurkha undoubtedly resembles that of the very first G-Wagon from 1979. Now this isn't really a coincidence, as the Gurkha Xtreme features core Mercedes-Benz hardware in the form of its engine and gearbox, while the transfer case is sourced from BorgWarner. Now the moment you start this 2.1-litre Mercedes-Benz turbo diesel engine, its refined nature is evident throughout its power band, and the gearbox isn't too notchy either. As for the transfer case, that operates in a fuss-free manner too. And those front and rear differential locks are easy to engage as well, aside from the fact that the front lock lever is a fair distance away from the driver. Getting the Gurkha Xtreme going is a rather easy task. The steering is of course heavy, and that is a good thing when it comes to off-roading, which combined with these mud tires should give you a fairly good idea of what's going on underneath. Now, although the Xtreme doesn't exactly leave you second-guessing from behind the wheel, I do wish there was more feedback from the steering wheel for more accurate high-speed off-roading. Part of this is also down to the spring-over axle suspension setup that leaves you with a somewhat distant feel of the vehicle. The mechanical setup of this car otherwise is superb for low-speed obstacles, as the engine, tasked by a Bosch ECU, makes the motor's 321 Nm of peak torque available from as low as 1600 rpm all the way to 2400 rpm. But in fact, this ECU does so much more than that. For all you have to do over an obstacle is just let go of all three pedals, and the ECU will simply detect a gradient and send just enough power to all four wheels so the Gurkha can overcome an obstacle. As a result, driving this Gurkha Xtreme off-road has turned out to be a very different experience from what I was expecting. Honestly, this ECU is a bit too impressive, and in fact, it reminds me of the Defender's ECU, as it functions in a very similar manner, and praise does not get higher than that. However, I would have liked for the ECU to give the driver a bit more liberty while tackling obstacles to give them better command. But then again, the ECU will retain 1000 rpm over all surfaces when you engage low range. So it serves as a hill climb feature as well as a hill descent control system. For once again, the driver is required to stay clear of all the pedals as the vehicle goes up or down an incline. It's really very competent, this ECU. But take control, and the Xtreme's powertrain allows you to carry a very decent amount of momentum over all sorts of terrain, while its long travel multi-link suspension gives you a great deal of suspension travel to conquer off-road obstacles and terrain. Something that is further aided by the vehicle's impressive 44-degree approach angle, 30-degree breakover angle and 40-degree departure angle, courtesy of the Gurkha's short overhangs. The Gurkha Xtreme then comes with all the credentials to make it a hardcore off-roader, but there's no getting away from its incredibly tall height of 2075 millimeters and that spring over axle setup. So it's not the most dynamically capable vehicle out there. But stick to the low range kind of off-roading and the Gurkha sure has everything it takes to make it a supremely capable off-roader. Now when it comes to the interiors of this Force Gurkha Xtreme, they haven't really changed much over the Explorer model. So you still get the same sort of a rudimentary dashboard. You get your air vents here. It comes with air conditioning and heating as standard. So that's a plus point on its side. But leaving aside those things, this is a purely utilitarian vehicle. You got an instrument cluster here, you got your rev counter here, the 4x4 lever down here for the transfer case as well is easy to operate. The differential locking, the rear ones here and the front ones there, so you got to pull them up and lock the differentials for hardcore off-road use. So all your operational stuff is right here. So this new Force Gurkha truly lives up to its extreme name tag. This ECU is so good, it just detects a gradient and climbs up. It'll detect a downhill gradient as well and act as a hill descent control. It's insane. It comes with a 3-inch lift kit already and it's got the works essentially right now. So this car truly has everything it takes to be a hardcore off-road product. It's just a matter of time now for it to be proven by the Indian Army's standards and then we'll see where this goes. At the same time, Force is also looking out at the private market with this car because it is extremely capable and is totally capable of catering to the off-road buyer. There's a lot of off-road clubs across the country now and this thing comes production ready. Nobody has to modify anything. The approach, departure and breakover angles are excellent. So this car really has what it takes to cater to the private buyer as well. All we need to now see is how it fares in the market space.
Well, that's all the time we have for you today. Thank you for joining us. Remember to use the autoX show hashtag to connect with us on social media and follow us on our different social handles to get your daily dose of all things automotive. Also, it's chaos out there, so remember, buckle up and always wear your helmets. We'll see you again next week on the autoX show.